Alright, welcome back YouTube. So today I thought I would go over some of the decks that I think would be seen on day one for the new expansion. So we'll just go over all the decks I think that are going to be, mildly practical and we'll probably see some play. The first one being Big Hunter. So this deck is just like the old Beast Hunter where you use your good quality beasts that have good effects and you just, try and cheat them out with the Saber Beast. And use a harpoon gun, dredge it back up. You just do the whole thing over and over again. The only difference with this list is that we're also trying to use Jungle Hammer or Jungle Jammer. You play a bunch of spells, but the idea for Jungle Jammer is to get it up to 6 spells. So you play it until cast a spell while equipped to improve, and so you just have to cast 5 spells, and then you destroy it. And there's actually a really high chance to hit another Mr. Mokla off that. And the reasoning for this is. Here, I'll show you. Beast. And then we'll go to standard cards. Why is it not wanting to do it? Okay, there we go. So, Death Beetle will be one of the beasts you'll be able to get off of it, which is a 6/6, which is still good. You'll get the Highmane off it as well. Parrot and the Frog, as well as Kresh, are all going to be rotating out. So you're going to be hitting Krakatoa, Death Beetle, Mr. Mokla, Highmane, off of it. So it's kind of like the idea is to try and hit it off of, try and, get to 6 and then destroy it, go face with Mokla. And it also won't add, or at least it shouldn't add bananas to hands because it's not it doesn't, summons a random beast. So it might make the battle cry go off, I'm not 100% sure. But it's going to be a lot of pressure, especially if you do this pretty fast. We don't also play the let's see, what is it called? The instrument tech in it. You could probably add this card in, so you have a higher chance of getting to your Jungle Jammer. But I didn't add it in the deck. You could take out some of the other cards and do it. This is just a very generic list that has most of the new cards in it, and so I think this would be a version that someone might see or you could possibly use. And then the next deck is Face Aggro, and this is a really cheap deck to build because everything here is commons and rares except for Mokla. Now you do get Black Knight and Dragonbane in the core set, so you could, if you didn't get Mr. Mokla in any of the packs that you bought, or if you didn't buy the bundle, any of the bundles at all, you could just add in like Highmane instead, or Banjo Soar or something, just any other good quality beasts. And just like any other Face Aggro Hunter deck that you've seen in the past, just curve out, play all your good spells, buff them up, and just spend it. And then with this deck too, the Jungle Jammer, it's the same theory as the last deck. You spend up to or you cast 5 spells, get it up to 6, destroy it, and hopefully you get another Mokla, or you get Krakatoa, which would be really good too for this deck because it summons up the 2 appendages too. That will equip a 4/1 weapon to yourself, and they also have Rush. So getting Mr. Mokla or Krakatoa off of it would be really good for the deck, and I could see a lot of people playing some type of version of Aggro Hunter on day 1, trying to push to Legend with this deck. All right, up next is Big Pally. Basically just like any other, well, not any other, but this is like a rough version of what the older Big Paladin deck would do, where you play front line and you try and pull out your big stuff and just basically have them attack. The difference with this one is that we're playing the War Rider in it, and front line War Rider, or even if you get it, activate the Death Rattle beforehand, it could summon up another one, and so you're basically just trying to pull out your War Rider with your Kangor and just try and kill your opponent that way, or you just outvalue them completely with just your big guys too. The fun thing about this is Mask Reveler could also get Ragnaros off of it, as well as the Leviathan, and so it's just I feel like this is going to be a very consistent deck, especially with Starlight Groove. You have you're playing a lot of holy spells in it as well, so you're always going to have a Divine Shield most of the time, as well as Hammer of Wrath is coming back as a 3 mana, deal 3, draw a card. This card's going to be really good in Paladin as well. True Silver with the healing, just everything, and then Kangor giving all the big beasts lifesteal, you're basically always going to be alive, as well as with Disco Maul. Death Rattle give a random friendly minion +1/+1. Play minions while equipped to improve. Like this is gonna make the big beast even bigger, and I feel like this deck would be seen quite a bit on day 1 too. So here's just kind of like a rough deck list. You could always refine it and do whatever you'd like with it, but this is my version that I would probably be playing on the first day. Up next is Rainbow Death Knight. Now this deck I'm really not sure about like at all. It's a Renathal deck that just kind of threw together with it. Basically the idea is the climatic necrotic explosion. It's such a tongue twister for me. But deals 5 damage lifesteal. Summon 2 1/1 souls, randomly improved by corpse you spent. Now, so the whole idea with that is you have Mosh Pit, spend 3 corpse to give a friendly minion reborn. Since they get reborn, you know, they're going to add more to your corpses, and so it's really just trying to play the cards and survive and possibly win just with like having a really nice curve. You curve all the way up to 3 with it pretty nicely, and so you're always going to have stuff to play. Now, the main problem with this is you don't have a lot of the good quality spells because you're playing one of each, and so you only get, you know, Plague Strike, Defrost. You get Astalar, which is damage too, but like for the rest of the stuff, you don't really have like you do have the Nerubian Visor too to discover spells as well, but you know everything else you just don't really. There's not a lot of ways of removal except for like Patchwork, Syndragosa, No Muncher, and Thessarian. So this deck might not be very consistent at all, but it's just a fun one that you guys might want to try on day 1. It might get refined and there might be a better list, but this is like kind of like all the stuff that I thought would make the most sense in a deck like this. That would be, you know, mildly consistent. But yeah, that's the Death Knight. I haven't come up with a cage head deck yet. Let's see, missing. Nah, it's not letting me see it. But the cage head, it won't let me pull it up for you guys. But I haven't come up with a cage head deck yet. I probably will, and when I do, I'll release a deck profile, a deck list for it too, with the video. The next one I think will be really good is Light Show Mage. Now, with all the new spells that they've added to Mage, like Volume Up, draw 3 spells. This isn't random spells. This tutors out exactly 3 spells from your deck, and so you're able to really find your light shows a lot faster. And so shoot 2 beams at enemies that deal 2 damage. Shoot 1 more for each light spell or light show you've casted this game. So the whole idea of the deck is to play light show and just continually recast it, use Savara and get it back, and just continually, you know, play them as like basically a over-progressed OTK to an extent. You also have Agwyn the Guardian, to where you're always going to have spell damage, and then you have Grand Magister Romamath, to recast all of the extra light shows that you discovered. We also play Photograph Fizzle to take a snapshot of some of the other key cards of the deck, like the Auto Splitter, the Light Show, another Savara, Volume Up, and just stuff like that. And so the whole idea is just to eventually, you know, just deal so much damage with the Light Show that your opponent can't do anything, and since it costs 3, you could discover it off of, where's the card at? Vast Wisdom. You could discover light shows from these as well, and so I feel like this would be a pretty fun deck to play on day 1 too, and I feel like this one will probably be one of the more consistent decks as well. The other one I could see possibly coming back is a new version of Mech Mage with a spell damage package, because a lot of the let's see, where's that? Copy the high spell in your hand. You might see like a Mech DJ Manastorm deck. I've been trying to like come up with one that I would show, but I didn't make it yet. But I would imagine some type of Mech Mage with like some spell damage, mini spell damage package will be seen in it as well. The next deck I came up with was Relic Rush. This is basically an Outcast Rush Relic deck where you play a lot of your cards that have Outcast in their name, and you basically just, you know, benefit from the Outcast cards with like this. After you play an Outcast card, add random Outcast to your hand. like reducing the cost of them, and you basically just try and rush them down, and then use Dark Raven to buff them up, and hopefully you just kind of beat them out that way. But as a kind of like another thing, we do have the relic package in it with it, Extinction, the Vault, as well as Phantasms to try and take advantage of getting the cast twice with the Relic Vault. And hopefully if you can't get them down with the rush stuff, you'll just beat them out with Zymox with the Relic Vault. This deck may or may not be good. I feel like if Dark Raven gave him charge, it would be a little bit more better, like give your outcast cards charge. I think this card would be way better. But this deck is kind of interesting. It might win you some games. I'm not sure how consistent it would be. I'm also not sure what any other type of like decks you could see with it. Like you could probably put Going Down Swinging in the deck too. We are losing the Kurtrus the hero card, so this kind of goes down in power, I think, a little bit. But this is something you could probably add into the deck if you do open it, or if you do just decide to craft it. I do think it would be mildly decent in the deck too, as a way to like survive if you need to remove a board of really like cheap minions or something like that. But this is just kind of like a very simplistic version of the Relic Rush. Okay, next is the Hero Power Druid. Now this is the one that I'm the most excited for. I feel like this one's going to be extremely consistent, and it's going to be really strong. Now the whole idea of the deck is to play your beasts, the Free Spirit, as well as Groovy Cat. They both have Battlecry and Death Rattle. Your armor power gains 1 more armor this game, and this one is gives your hero 1 more attack this game. So the idea is just progressively jam these out and play Fog Snout or Zoc Fog Snout, and have 2 Quillboars with Taunt that have just a lot of attack and armor. And you basically have the thing, it's just just a very value-oriented deck. You use Rake to remove your stuff, because you could tap and go up to like, what is it, 2, 4, like, so you'll get 5 attack, 5 armor. So this Rake could remove 7 drops without a problem. You could discover these beasts off of the Peaceful Piper, so this deck I think will be pretty consistent. This is a very generic version of the deck as well. We also have the Auto Engineer in here as well as Metronome. The off chance that you're able to curve out really well, you'll just draw through your deck perfectly. I don't really know how consistent this card will be, but I started to add this in some of the decks just to try it out. But yeah, I feel like this would be a pretty good deck to get to try out as well. It's also basically free to play, because I believe we do get this in the reward pass or the battle pass. And if you don't have Fog Snout, you can craft it, but everything else is just commons and rares, except for Free Spirit right here, which is an epic. But you could probably get away with just doing the Groovy Cat, but you'd most likely want to have Free Spirit in your deck as well for this to work. But it's pretty cheap for the most part. And this is, of course, not the most refined version of the deck. There's probably going to be a better version of this, but this is just day 1, what I would think would be seen. This has a good amount of the new cards in it. So this is one deck you should try too. Another one that I think would be pretty great to play is the Mistake Warrior, which is basically the 1 amalgam ban deck, where you basically play a bunch of different types of cards. So you play Elementals, you play Mistake, you play Amalgam, Party Animal, and let's see, Rusted Viper. You play Dread Corsair as well as Sword Eater, and you basically it's basically just an aggro deck. You freeze your stuff, you keep playing them, and eventually you have your big finisher on turn 7. You also play the Weapons Expert to buff up the weapons from Sword Eater, as well as where's that, Woodcutter's Axe, and you just have really other good quality cards. I feel like if this was in your hand, draw a card for each minion you control in your hand, this would be a little bit more consistent, but it is draw. You could also play, if you want to, you might be able to get away with playing the Light of the Phoenix in the deck too. You could also probably play the Fire package in this deck as well, but the whole idea is to, play the different types so you get this as big as possible. And we're trying to make it aggro, so on day 1 you can just be fast with it and try and get as many wins as possible with it. Another deck I think would be semi-decent on day 1 is Control Lock. which a lot of the good control elements that Warlock lost, they're getting it back now, such as Armor Vendor, Spirit Bomb, and Defile. Let's see, what was the other stuff they got? As well as Mal'Ganis. And so with this deck is you basically just control until you get to the very bottom, the Jailer and Mal'Ganis. Now there's a really cool thing you can do with this. With the Jailer, destroy your deck for the rest of the game. Your minions are immune. And if you're able to combo this with Mal'Ganis, your other demons have +2/+2. Your hero is also immune. Now, if you are able to get these two off together and stay alive the entire time, your hero will be immune as well as your minions, which means you'll essentially be invincible and they can't do anything to you and they'll just concede. Now, this is probably this deck might work. This might be a meta-defining deck, just because of all the really good cards that are coming back. Spirit Bomb, Arson Accusation, the Fail String Harp is also going to be really good with an instrumental attack, and just everything else. Hellfire. I haven't decided what to put into ETC Band Manager yet either, but you could probably put Twisting Nether in here. Soul. Actually, I think we're losing Soul Rend. Yeah, we're losing Soul Rend, but it's going to be. Oh, why didn't it? Oh, turn 4. There we go. But this is just a very simplistic. Like, you could probably put Crazed Conductor in there as well. Take fatigue damage, summon that many imps, because if you're decked out and you play Mal'Ganis, everything you get off here will also be immune. So it's just, I feel like this deck is just you control out the board as much as you can, survive as long as you can, drop down the Jailer and Mal'Ganis, and you just win. They can't do anything to you, and so I think this deck would be pretty solid to play. You also play Sympathy of Sins in here as well, and so you could buff up these or make one of these costs really cheap with some of the new spells in it. So I feel like this deck would be more likely than not like an A tier deck when it gets revised. So look forward to seeing this deck. The next deck I think that we'll probably not see much play is the Overload Shaman deck. Basically the same idea as every other like Overload Shaman. You just play a bunch of really good quality Overload stuff. Use Overdraft to get rid of the crystals, but they did get some new stuff. They got Inza, which is legendary battlecry for the rest of the game. Your Overload cards cost 1 less. Now, it's not very consistent, I don't think. I think the only good card here is Jive Insect, and so you could probably just play a Control Shaman deck or just a mid-range Shaman deck, and you play Jive Insect and you try and play, what's it called? Ajar and Skull, or the, let's see, Scalding Geyser to try and get a fire spell. Shaman doesn't have very many fire spells, so you could get multiple Jive Insects off it pretty fast, and just use, Rag the Fire Lord to be dealing it damage. Now, this does have some new cards in it, like Altered Chord. Lifesteal, deal 5 to a minion, cost 3 less if you're overloaded. I feel like that card's going to be pretty solid in Shaman overall too. Jazz Bases might be good. Your next spell costs 1 less. Overload while equipped to improve. I think this is definitely one of the worst weapons they introduced, because it's only your next spell costs 1 less. It's not all your spells cost that less, and so it's only one spell that's getting that, that gets cheaper. Now, if it gets hit with Criminal Lineup, that'd be pretty good, and then you could do like some type of OTK with Alcar, the Windlord, but that's pretty hard to get. The idea is, Jazz Band or Jazz Bass, and play a bunch of Overload, gets it cheap, play Alcar, try and get, fill the board with it, maybe try and buff them up with like a spell like Bloodlust or something, and just go face with the Wind Fury. I don't think this deck will be very consistent, but people will probably be trying this out to get it to work. Okay, so the next deck list I got for you guys is Overheal Priest. Now, I feel like a lot of people are going to be playing this deck as well. Holy Champion and Mana Geode got a rework, so now they're 2 mana 1/4, Overheal gain +2 attack, and Mana Geode Overheal summon a 2/2 crystal. Now, this deck is going to be kind of played as like a aggro Overheal deck to an extent. You have Crimson Clergy, Overheal, draw a card. So those will be a lot of card draw in the deck, as well as Cathedral of Atonement. And you just have really good quality spells. Give friendly minion +2/+3. Only can target this with spells and hero powers, or only you can target it with it. And so you use the really good spells, you know, overheal them, and just summon up random minions with the Heartthrob. It's cheap, it's a 3-mana 2/5, so it's going to be living on turn 3 for the most part. I feel like this deck would be pretty solid. Another thing you could probably play in the deck is Animated Dead to get back Heartthrobs, and you just continuously overheal. Hinatus is really good too because it doesn't only target minions, it also hits the enemy's face as well. So, you know, if you get this down on turn 4 and you're able just to constantly overheal with Flash Heal and just other stuff like Fan Heal or Fan Club as well, this deck could become just very consistent and probably a little bit overwhelming, especially on day 1 too. The next deck list I got for you is Freebird OTK. Now, this isn't necessarily an OTK deck, I guess. It's just Freebird, playing a lot of Freebird until you eventually kill your opponent, with just a lot of survivability. With it, Prep, Shadow Demise, Shadow Step, and Breakdance. Breakdance is a really important card for this deck. You Breakdance, return a friendly minion to your hand, summon a dancer with its stats, and Rush. So you basically want to Breakdance your Freebird and play it again, and you just continuously do that. You also have Shadow Step to bring it back to your hand as well. Door of Shadows will also get you multiple Breakdances. It could also give you more Fan of Knives, which is a new, well, not new card, but it's coming back in the core set, and they've changed it up. Deal 2 damage to all enemy minions and draw a card. It went from 3 mana to 2 mana, so it's going to be a little bit more consistent against the aggro decks. You could imagine to see this deck on ladder 2 just because of Fan of Knives. Well, not specifically Freebird, but just Rogue. So a lot of the aggro decks you're going to see on day 1, this is going to be probably the class to play for that because of the Fan of Knives and just all the extra removal it has. But so the main idea to the deck is to, you know, tutor out your Record Scratcher with Instrument Tech, and the more combo cards you play, the more mana crystals will refresh. And so you play 2 of these, and you try and get it down as early as you can, and you just basically want to play all your combo cards. You have Disc Jockey, which will add, if you combo it out, it adds another combo card to your hand, so you can continuously get a bunch of combo cards. You could Shadow Step it back and do all that stuff with it as well. You also have Useful Brewmaster too, as well as Bounce Around to just continuously get your Freebirds back, as well as Zola. You also have Elven Minstrel, however you pronounce it. Draw 2 minions from your deck, so it's very easy to tutor out your Freebirds, and you just kind of, you know, beat them down with Freebirds until you get them up as big as you possibly can. It's real nice if they have charge. Cost 4. You could it'd be really nice if the heroes were staying in this next season too, because you would be able to return it with Scabs too. But since Scabs it's rotating out, it should be Fractured Valley. I believe he is rotating out. So there's not like any other ways to get it aside from Shadow Stepping it or using Breakdance or Bounce Around. But Bounce Around is going to be really good if you're able to have 2 or 3 Freebirds on the board, and you play them. You play Bounce Around, it comes back to your hand as 1 cost, and you're able to play them more and more. And I feel like this deck is going to be it's going to be seen quite a lot on day 1 for the ladder. Now, whether or not you see Freebird in another deck, I feel like this is probably going to be the best class to play it in. You could probably see Freebird in the Hunter class or maybe even Druid class, but I think Rogue would be able to use it the best. You could also maybe play MC Blingatron in there too, because they take 1 more damage if they have their weapon equipped, and so you could maybe do some type of combo with MC Blingatron as well as Freebird and deal more damage that way. I do think this is a little less consistent. You can maybe do a MC Blingtron as well as a Garrote deck to help deal a little bit more damage that way too. But I think this deck would be the most fun to play on day 1.